Leches Shabbos, so two of the malachas is the malacha of kosher, matir, tying knots and untying knots. And I just want to speak about what seems to be a chiddush from the Alter Rebbe and where the Alter Rebbe takes this from, why he learns as he does. Concerning the malacha of kosher, so it's very clear when the Gemara, the Mishnah says that one is only chayiv if one ties a kesher shokayama, that the knot has to be something which is tied in the way of kayama, which we'll say for our purposes, which is la halacha, is la elam, that a person ties it without any das of opening it up, and it's going to stay there as long as it can. Where do we learn this from? We learn this from the tzidei chilazin, from the traps that they made to catch the chilazin, koshin or matirin, that they would tie it, they would untie it, but whenever they tied it, they had in mind that it's not going to stay there unless there's going to be a reason they're going to have to open it up, but that it wasn't anticipated. Now, what are the exact tanoim for a chiyuv, for an isur deraisa with regards to kosher? So we have a machlokas rishonim, and it's based on the sugya and peripheral sharim, where the Gemara introduces that there's three brises. We're talking about the classic cases of tying knots, involves a minnow, a sandal, shoes and sandals that they used to be tied. Our shoelaces are still tied, but the straps of sandals were certainly tied. And we have three brises. Tani chadu chayav chatos. When it comes to retuus of minnow, a sandal, one brisa says that it's an isur deraisa. Tani idach pater al asur. Another brisa says it's only also with rabbanan. Tani idach mutar lechatchila. And the third brisa says that it's mutar lechatchila. So we're talking about the retuus minnow of the sandal. We're talking about the exact same situation. We're talking about a shoe, a sandal. Yet we find that we have a possibility that tying the knot is isur deraisa, possibility that it's only isur derabbanan, and a possibility that it is mutar lechatchila. And the Gemara then goes on to answer up what the three brises are talking about by giving examples of what we're talking about. And the Gemara says that when you have a chiyuchatos, when is the isur deraisa? This is the knot which is tied by a professional shoemaker, and therefore it's an isur deraisa. When we talk about a knot which is patur lavel also, that is with the rabbanan, that is a knot which is tied in the shoes of the rabbis, with the rabbanan. And when is a mutar lechatchila, with the v'nei mechoiza, that the people from mechoiza who we'll see from Rashi, who are very makbid on their clothing, that is, they're not opening it up on a very soon basis. Therefore, it's also midrabanan. What it means is that midrabanan, this is considered shokayam. So you have shokayam midraisa, is that it's like a kesher shokayam midraisa sofer, is that it's there for a certain zman, but it's not like a. And then you have what's mutar lechatchila, is b'nei mechoiza. They were people who were very makbid on their clothing, and therefore the shoes have to be tied up tightly to look nice, and therefore the only way you can take it off is if you undo it. So because the shoes were tied and untied every single day, so therefore it is mutar lechatchila. But again, the chilukim over here is all to do with the chiluk between the three brises is all to do with the zman. If it's forever, it's a deraisa. If it's for mesha zman ma, there's you koitz of zman in your mind, so then it's isur derabanan. And if it's to open up, and we'll go the halacha, if it's the hatu b'yoyim, which open up on the very day itself, within 24 hours, so then it is mutar lechatchila. That's the view of Rashi and the Rosh. Then we have the Rif and the Rambam, who say that no, there's not just one t'nai, there's not just one condition that creates an isur deraisa. It's not just about the time, the duration for the knot, but it also depends on the type of knot which one is being tied as well. What comes out from the Rif and the Rambam is that if you have Tartil Reisa, if you have two negative factors, then you have an Isur Deraisa. What are they? That it has to be both a Kesher Maisa Uman, it's got to be a professional type of knot, not just Stam Maisa Hedyot, and it has to be, like the Mishnah says, a Kesher Shokayam, it has to be there forever. Only if you have both of these conditions can you have an Isur Deraisa. What about which type of knot is patur, which is the Gemara says the rabbanan. So there, the Rif says if it's the rabbanan, it's a ma'aseh hedyot. It's not a knot tied by the shoemaker. It's every single person ties it for themselves, and therefore it's a ma'aseh hedyot. However, it is shehu shokayama, but it is there as a kesher shokayama. It's there forever, and therefore it's also midrabanan. And what is mutar lechatchila? B'nei mechoiza. So you have here now tied to the tubusa that on one hand it's both a ma'aseh hedyot and it's also ein shokayama. It's not there to be there, let's say forever at the moment. and therefore that type of knot is going to be mutter. So from the combination of the two factors of the type of knot and the duration of the knot, from there we get 3 chilukim. That it is to derive is when you have both Maisa Uman and Kesher Kayama. If what's mutter lechatchila, if it's a both a Maisa Hedjot and it's Einish Kayama, and if you have one of the two, then it's going to be Isur Derabana. That either it's a Maisa Hedjot but it's Shokayama, or it's a Maisa Uman, even if it's not Shokayama, then it's going to be Asur. Now, when we the 3 chilukim in Zman only exist by Shittas Rashi and the Rosh. But the 3 chilukim, that there's a kesher that's there forever, there's a kesher that's lahatir b'yoymo, it's not shokayam at all, and there's this third quasi-level of kesher shokayama midivrei soifim, or shokayama k'tzaz, that only exists in the Shittas Rashi and the Rosh in order to be metaret to the prices that you can have 3 different things, because by them it doesn't make a difference, the type of the knot. Mashenke in the Shittas Riv and the Rambam, where between the two factors, you don't need to come to a third shir in Zman to be metaret the prices. So by them, l'cha'oira is no such thing as a kesher shokayama k'tzas. There's 2 shiurim, either it's shokayama or it's not shokayama. You end it. And this you see in the lashon of the Beis Yosef, where he gives a sikum in the shittas. He says, "Namsim l'meidim." We see from this the kesher shokayama is a kesher which is shiamud la'olam. That's kesher shokayama. Kesher she'ena shokayama, which is mutter, is ha'asui lahatiroi b'chol yom. And then there the Beis Yosef is talking l'kule'am. Everyone agrees that you have this. You have what's called the kesher shokayama, which is la'olam, and you have a kesher she'ena shokayama. Then he says, Uladas and Rashi v'harosh, and according to Rashi and the Rosh, you have now this third gather, which is where it's there for yamim. It's yamim rabbim. It's there for a certain amount of time, and therefore you have this third shita as well, and you have this third shir in zman as well. And this is the way the Mishnah Berurah learns in Sharatzion Vav. The Mishnah Berurah says the same thing, that according to Shittas Harambam, bevadai ein chiluk bein yom echad oil lizman. Mishnah Berurah says very clear, according to the Rambam, there's only 2 shiurim. If it's la'ilam vayet, then that's a kesher shekayama. Anything less than la'ilam vayet, it could be for 10 years, it could be for 50 years, but if it's not tied la'ilam vayet, then it is considered einish or kayama. Klal, there are only 2 shiurim in Zman. The Mishnah Tzayzav from Gadim learns the same, that within Shittas Rambam, that you have anything which is not shokayama la'ilam vayet is einish or kayama klal. And meaning anything that's for a set amount of time is Einish Kayama Klal. After the Taz learns the same, but he says Fakert, whereas the Mishnah Berurah and the Pri Megadim say that anything that's La'ilam Vayed is Shokayama, anything less is not Kayama at all, according to the Rambam. The Taz says Fakert, that anything which is Lahatur B'yoimoy, to undo on its day, is Einish Kayama, and anything more is Shokayama Midai Raisa, according to the Rambam. Again, though, that there's no third shir. Now, the Avnei Nezer, when he discusses the shita of the Rambam over here, with regards to this, the fact that you cannot say a third shir is going to exist, so he says as follows, that it logically makes sense to say so. Because when we talk about the Shar Poskim, Rashi and the Rosh, we understand you have to have 3 shiurim, otherwise you can't have the 3 chilukim. However, according to Shittas Rambam, so we said like this, that if you have a kesher shokayama and it's a maisa uman, then it's chayav chatos. If it's kesher she'ena shokayama and maisa hedjed, then it's patal asur. And if you have one of the two, then it's going to be asur midrabanan. So he says as follows: if we're going to say, according to Shittas Rambam, that there is a third shir in zman, which is shokayama k'tzas, then we have a problem with a gezeira legezeira, because you have a kesher maisa hedjed, a simple knot. And you're going to tell me not only when you tie it, la'ilam void, which is also mitrabanan, that's also mitrabanan, but even if you tie it for meshach zman ma, we'll call that shokayama midivrei soifrim, up to a kesher shokayama la'ilam, which anyway is only going to be also mitrabanan. We have a problem, and goes to gzeira, and therefore logically it can't be the Shittas Aram and Shittas Arif that should be this third chiluk of kesher shokayama k'tzas. Now all of that goes very well until we look inside the Alter Rebbe. Because the way the Alter Rebbe is mesaber the halachas, and he brings the 2 shittas in the Rishonim, so the Alter Rebbe goes first in Sif, I divide it up into 2 sifim. In Sif Aleph, the Alter Rebbe goes through the 3 shiurim in Zman. that min ha-Torah, a kesher shokayoma, is one ha'oimed liskayem la'olam. And then he goes on to say that if it's not, so then it's potter. However, it's also midivrei sofrim. It's nikra gamkein shel kayoma. And then Alter Rebbe brings that if it's the title atira beyoymoi, so then it's mutar lechatchila. So here the Alter Rebbe is telling us that there are three shiurim in Zman: kesher shokay midiraisa, kayoma ktsas, which is also midirabanan, and eino lekayoma at all to open the hatir beyoymoi. Okay, nothing to do with the two shittas. Comes Sif Beis, and the Alter Rebbe now introduces us to the two shittas in Rishonim. First he brings shittas Arif Rambam, and he says as follows: that there are those who say it's only Isur D'Oraisa, even if it's a Kesher Ha'omed Liskayim La'olam, it's only an Isur D'Oraisa, but it's also a Maisa Uman. You have to have title L'Reisa. If it's a Kesher Shokayim Kayama, the Eino Maisa Uman, right? Then it's going to be Potter. Now comes along the Alter Rebbe at the very end of this, towards the end of this shitta, says as follows: Afilu einoi oimed liskayim la'olam, even if it's not in this ma'aseh hedyot, this ma'aseh hedyot is not tied to be there la'olam. Ela keshir shenisbar, but like the shir that I told you, kesher shokayom ktsas in Sif Aleph, that is still going to be also midirabanan. And then he goes on to bring shittas Rashi and the Rosh of Yesh Oimrim, that there's no difference in the type of knot. So we see very clear that Alter Rebbe brings that even according to Shittas Arif Rambam, there is this third chiluk in Zman that is considered kesher shokayom midivrei sofrim, that is kayom ktsas. That's one question on the Alter Rebbe. How does the Alter Rebbe deal with the fact that the Avnei Nezer says that this itself is going to be gezerah legezerah? Another question is that we said that there's two oifanim according to the Rif and the Rambam. You can have an isur d'Rabbanan. One is that it's a ma'aseh hedyot, but it is now based on the Alter Rebbe. It's not la'olam, even if it's for meshach zman ma, that's also midrabanan. Or fakeret, where you have a ma'aseh uman, but it's lahatir b'yom, which the Alter Rebbe then brings. And the Alter Rebbe says that if it's a ma'aseh uman, afilu eina also liskayim klal el lahatir b'yomoi, also midivrei sofrim. Gezeira mishum kesher ma'aseh uman ha'asu liskayim la'olam. It's a gezeira up to the fact that you might now come to tie the same ma'aseh uman knot. You might now come to tie it la'olam, not just lahati b'yomid, and therefore be an isur d'oraisa. So another deal is in Alter Rebbe is when the Alter Rebbe talks about this type of knot, which is also midrabanan. The Alter Rebbe says that it's gezeira mishum kesher ma'aseh uman ha'asu liskayim la'olam. When the Alter Rebbe talks about the first type of kesher, which is also midrabanan, the Shittas Arif Rambam, he writes also midivrei sofrim. He doesn't say that it's a gezeira up to something else. It's also midivrei sofrim, and that's where he says even if it's not liskayim la'olam, only for a meshach zman ma, more than one day. So we have to understand the Alter Rebbe a little bit more. To understand that, we have to look that there is a famous sikha from the Rebbe Chelek Yudalet Parshas V'Eschanan, when the Rebbe discusses what is the nature of the malacha of kosher. And I'll really just cut out the arichos, but the nekuda that the Rebbe makes over there, and the question the Rebbe is asking is why don't we say that if you tie it for a certain amount of time, it's not ba'olam, but you tie it for a certain amount of time, why don't we say that this is a chetzi shir and should be also min ha-Torah as well? Why don't we say it's only midrabanan? And then the Rebbe has another question, that why do we say this is mutter in a makom mitzvah? We don't find other shvusim in a makom which are mutter in a makom mitzvah, only a shvus to shvus is mutter in a makom mitzvah, so why should this be any different? And the Rebbe L'maskana basically says is as follows, that if a kesher, the fact that a kesher has to be l'kayama is not just to do with the kamus of the mitzvah, of the malacha, it's to do with the eichus of the malacha. That is, if it's not l'kayama, if the knot is not there to endure forever, then it's not even begeder kosher whatsoever. You're lacking a t'nai ikri in the geder of the malacha. Why is that? Because what is kosher? And this nekud which the Rebbe brings, there are many rayas from the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch against, but in concept the Rebbe says that kesher is a fabund, is a connection between two things. And for that kesher, that connection to be considered true connection, it has to be l'kayama. If it's not l'kayama, and you're eventually going to undo it, then even when it's still standing right now, but it's ki'ilu eino because you're planning to open it up. So only if it's kesher kayama does it even have the geder of a a kesher. Therefore, what do we see? That when Chazal say that you have a kesher, which is also mitivrei sofer because of for meshach zman ma, this is not something which is because you could come to violate the Issa D'Oraisa, because kol man that you actually have in mind the time to open it up, it's only also because it's doime. It looks like a kesher shokayam. And this the Rebbe brings in the Sikha, Rambam Per Kapala, from the Rambam says that from the Isurim with the Rabbanon on Shabbos, there are two types of Isurim. There are those which Chazal asur because of the Gezerah, that it might bring to a person to violate the Issa D'Oraisa. And then there are those that even when a person won't come from that to violate Issa D'Oraisa, Chazal asur because it is doimin l'melacha, it's something which looks like it's something which is going to look like a melacha. Now, when we talk about if we take this view and apply it to our situation over here, so when you talk about the tying of a knot in something, so we said that if you tie for Meshach Zman Ma, that cannot come to be an Issa D'Oraisa because the Geder of a Kesher, it's missing the Eichus of the Melacha, it's missing one of the Gedolim of the Melacha, you cannot come to have an Issa D'Oraisa. Masha Enken, when we talk about the flip side from going between a Maisa Uman and a Maisa Hedyot, so there it's possible that there you could have the knot which is tied la'olam, and then if you have a shinu, you change it, and instead of tying this type of knot, you tie the other type of knot. There you could come and do a melacha d'oraisa. So I wanted to suggest as follows. When do we say a klal ein gozer gzeira legzeira is when both shvusim, both of the gezeiras are in the same category of gezeira, that one is a gezeira up to the next thing. Okay? So for example, if we were to say there was a chashash that by tying a kesher l'kayom k'tzas, a person could come and tie it lo'elam ba'ed, so that would be one gezeira, and then to say that even when it's a ma'aseh hedger, would be also because you might come to time ma'aseh uman, that would be gezeira. That's the way what the Avnei Nezer says, and that type would be a problem. However, based on what the Rebbe says, that the reason kesher shokayoma the meshach zman ma is only also midrabban is not mitzad gezeira. You can't come to an issur d'oraisa to it, but it's only because it's doim l'melacha. So therefore, it's not in the geder of the gezeira. It's in the geder of the doim l'melacha. Therefore, we're not going to say over here a gezeira l'gezeira. Masha'ike, the Rebbe says in the ha'ara down here in the Sikha that the Rebbe says as follows, ha'ara 35. If there's a sibah chazaka ligzor, for example, we find in the Alter of the Shulchan Aruch, which is the halacha we quoted, Sivan Shin Yud Zayin Siv Beis, that when you have a Maisa Uman, according to Shittas HaRambam, she'az korod ma'oid she'yaser kesher shekayom. If I'm tying a Maisa Uman, so I'm already tying a Maisa Uman, which means I want it to be strong and lasting. So it's very korod that a person will now tie that it should be la'olam void, and therefore we take a goizer in such a case. And similarly, the Chari could say on the flip side as well, that if a person is tying a kesher or kayom and he wants it to be la'olam, it's karov levada, he's going to tie it, or could come to tie it in a way of a ma'isa uman, and therefore would be over an isur deraisa. Masha enken, going from the kesher or kayom kitzas to kayom deraisa, that is very unlikely. And with that, first we can answer why the Alter Rebbe does not consider this exer. We can also answer the deal in the lashon of the Alter Rebbe. And when the Alter Rebbe talks about a kesher which is a ma'isa uman, that's not the sky and cloud, but it's also latira b'yomoy. Here the Alter Rebbe writes that it's also b'divrei soifrim and gezeira, because you may come to a kesher ma'aser uman ha'asul l'skayim la'olam. Because once you're tying a ma'aser uman, it's part of levade, like the Rebbe said, that a person will come to tie it, and therefore the Alter Rebbe used the lashon of gezeira over here. Masha Enkein in the previous sit, when the Alter Rebbe brings the Torah, what we said is his chidush, that even if it's not oimed l'skayim la'olam, it's still going to be also when you tie a ma'aseh, hedyot. So over there, we can't say it's a gezeira l'gezeira. It's not beget gezeira. It's only also because it's doim l'mlacha. Therefore, the Alter Rebbe says over here, it's just standard. It's also midivrei soifrim and not mitzad a gezeira. Just to take a hayrah, we're coming up to Gimel Tammuz. Chodesh Tammuz is a chodesh where it's a time where we focus on a iskashus to the Rebbe. And the connection that a chassid has to the Rebbe is termed with this idea of iskashus, that it has to be a kesher. And if we take something from the Sikh from the Rebbe, that the geder of a kesher is something which is a chibur between two things, and a chibur can only be an emes chibur if it is liskayim la'olam, if it's there to remain forever, that there's no plans to undo it. You're not, today, now, this month, this week, this time, I'm only Seder, and yet Iskashus is going to be for a month. No, it has to be Lo'elam Vayed. And then it's considered Iskashus, then it's considered a Kesher. Masha Enkein, if it's not, even if it's not Asui, that to be Yoimon, that it's there to remain for a Meshach Man Ma, for the next month, for the next year, unless it's a Iskashus, where a person gives themselves over completely on the level of Yechida, where they give themselves over completely and eternally to the Rebbe, so then it's only, like the Rebbe says over here, it's not even it's only a dimyon. It's not a malacha, it's not a real kesher. It's not even really a kesher that's also midrabanan because you make up, it's only a dimyon bilvad. So the Chayra, we have to make sure that these kashas from the Rebbe is one that it's in a way kayam lo'elam void, and that we be zoifet to have an emes these kashas, and zoifet to see the Rebbe, maybe basar, good kashas, and matam asar,